Hi guys, so Zia Yusuf, the unelected bureaucrat at Reform UK, was invited onto Sky News because, well, today ends in the letter Y. Now, last week Richard Tice was on, at least he's an MP, he was on to talk about small boats and he suggested using the Royal Navy to stop them crossing. So, well, Zia Yusuf was asked a similar question, and have a listen to his response.
Whether they would be there, and if they were there, what they'd be doing. Because he said they wouldn't stop the boats, they'd observe. What's the deal? What are you going to do?
What we would need to say, the issue at the moment, the Royal Navy is more than capable of surveilling the Channel, more than capable of being deployed. Marines could easily go and stop those boats. The reason they don't...
No. There aren't. I've covered this before. You'd need hundreds, perhaps even thousands of ships to completely block the Channel. It's a massive channel. It's a lot of water. And there are a lot of points where people cross from. So you'd need hundreds of ships, and the Royal Navy doesn't have hundreds of ships. But even if you did have hundreds of ships, how are ships going to push boats back?
Because what could they do with them? All they can do is what Border Force currently does, which is insane. Border Force currently, as we speak, is offering a complimentary ferry service to these illegal migrants, where they pick them up and bring them back to our shores. The Reform government will take them to a detention facility.
So were you in government, would you put the Royal Navy into the Channel or not?
Well, whether it's the Marines, whether it's Border Force, they will be detained, taken to a detention facility and deported, which means sort of the boats stop coming. This is the point.
Okay, so you're going to be doing exactly what the Tories were doing before they moved people into hotels. So people are picked up. Like you're saying, we're going to use the Royal Navy to stop the boats. But then you're saying, well, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Royal Navy to pick up the people and take them to a detention centre. But that's not stopping the boats. Does he actually understand what's stopping? Is it that Reform UK have moved so far now that they're just abandoned the idea of actually stopping the boats? Because they keep saying, we're going to use the Royal Navy to stop the boats. And then as soon as he's asked, what is the Royal Navy going to do? And he says, well, it's going to be like Border Force. It's going to pick people up and take them to a detention centre.
Boats will stop coming. The boats will stop coming. It will be the Royal Navy or Border Force that do it.
Yeah,
but again, Trevor, let's have a serious conversation about this. You tell me,
Let's have a serious conversation about this. So the gaslighting has already begun. Trevor, you don't understand. What we're going to do is we're going to stop the boats by using the Royal Navy to pick up people in the Channel and take them to a detention centre. See, it's that simple. How's that going to stop the boats? It will stop the boats. You just have to believe in it. A bit like Brexit. If you believe in Brexit, it will succeed. If you believe in Reform UK's policy, it will succeed.
Do you think boats are going to keep coming when all that's happening is they're going straight to a detention facility and return back to their home country?
But people were going to detention centres before. The problem was that the Conservatives refused to process the claims. And then the detention centres filled up. Detainment centres as well filled up, and then there was an overflow, so people had to be moved out. They tried to put them in military bases, ex-military bases. That didn't really work because people from Reform or supporters of Reform protested outside those military bases. So then they decided, okay, let's put them in hotels, and that worked for a while, but it's expensive to put them in hotels. So Reform were complaining about the cost of hotels. So they decided to bring down the number of hotels by putting people into rented accommodation. So it seems Reform's plan is to just allow the boats to cross the Channel, pick people up and put them in detention centres. So if the detention centres currently are overflowing and the claims are not being processed fast enough, then are you going to build more detention centres?
I have no idea about psychology. I'm asking you about...
I think you're being very modest, Trevor. You're being very modest.
I'm asking about the operations here. Would you put the Royal Navy, and now you're talking about the Marines, into the Channel, and what would they do? Would they sink the boats? Would they take people...
Don't ask follow-up questions. Just ask, what would they do? Don't give him answers. Ask him the simple question. What would the Royal Navy do in the Channel? That's it.
Love boats? What would they do?
So the first and most important thing is the boats will stop coming. That's the first point.
They'll just stop. So what we'll do is we'll put the Royal Navy in the sea, in the English Channel, and the boats will stop. See, there. So you just have to believe that will happen. But they don't stop. Then what?
agree that somebody
about
starts
what you
to...
hope's going to happen. I'm asking you what
I'm
what
telling
instructions
you,
would
I'm
you
telling
give
you what
the
will
Royal
happen
Navy?
when we pass legislation. Well, let me give you some evidence of this. The Trump administration has I'm answering your question. The Trump administration has cut illegal border crossings by 97%. Whatever you think of...
Okay, let's say for the sake of argument that's true. I don't fully buy that, but let's say for the sake of argument it's true. There's a difference between a land border between Mexico and the United States and a sea border between France and Britain. The people are crossing Zia Yusuf has not said that we're going to close the border. He's suggesting that we'll close the border, but you can't close the border because it's not enough. It's not a border like an airport or a land border. Let's imagine you were to try and compare what Donald Trump is doing with what the UK is doing, what the UK would do under a Reform UK. They would have to close the border on the Republic between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Now that would be pretty difficult. Donald Trump has been willing to invest billions of dollars in closing the border. It still means some people have crossed the border, but the numbers are way down because they literally closed it. But you can't do that. You can't close the border between France and the UK because there's a sea there, there's a channel. You're comparing apples and oranges.
President Trump, the reason that has happened is because ICE has been deployed. They've arrested hundreds of thousands of people and deported hundreds of thousands of people. What's happened? People have stopped crossing the border. That is exactly why the small boats will stop coming, Trevor.
Okay, so you're going to put snatch squads onto the streets of Birmingham.
Whether it's border force, these are unarmed, largely men in dinghies. We don't need a particularly formidable military to be able to take them to a detention facility.
The ICE...
Okay, you take them to a detention centre and then do what? He hasn't mentioned processing claims. Because these are people claiming asylum. So they have to have their asylum claims processed. And if they're successful, they remain. And if they're unsuccessful, they get deported. But Reform UK are trying to sell this idea that we can detain people and automatically deport them. But there are problems there. There are legal problems within the UK. But there is also the problem of where do you deport them to? Because many countries may say, we don't want these people back. Then what are you going to do? They're suggesting what we'll do is we'll do deals. Okay, but you can't do a deal until you're in government. You can try and do deals while you're in opposition, but it won't be signed until you're in government because you're not the official government. So then what happens? You have a deal that's ready to go from a few weeks after you get into power, but the boats are still coming.
The ICE operatives are armed. That's the example you just used.
Yeah.
These are armed men and women who go into factories. They went into a big technology factory the other day, took out 500 people. Are you saying that's what reform would do?
Trevor, the reason they are armed is almost all law enforcement personnel in America are armed because Americans are armed in the way that British people are not. So no, we don't need UK Deportation Command unless they're going after people who are criminals.
I wasn't the person who raised it.
Okay, but people who don't want to be deported will resist that. So is Reform UK going to suggest we're going to have armed officers go into... None of this makes sense. It's about pandering to the worst people in society. The worst people in society look across the pond and say, oh, Donald Trump is doing a wonderful job. We should copy and paste that. Not understanding the legal problems and the physical problems and the physical difference between the UK and its neighbour and the United States and its neighbours. They're a joke party. They're pandering to the worst people in society, hoping that they would probably forget once they get into power. They don't have a real plan. They're saying what we're going to do is we're going to use the Navy to stop the boats. And what will the Navy do to stop the boats? Well, they'll just pick up people like Border Force and we'll take them to a detention centre. Okay, that will be a deterrent, putting people in detention centres in the way that they used to be held in detention centres before. It's a joke party. They don't actually have any real plan. And unfortunately, they don't really need a plan because all they have to do is hope that the current government collapses and they will take over power by default. In a similar way to Labour took over from the Conservatives. They didn't win a massive majority because people wanted the Labour Party in power, is they wanted the Tories out. And if Labour mess up, people will vote them out and they'll replace them with people like this. A joke party. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. I'll see you in the next video.